Namaskar, Nilesh Ok here, and welcome back to the course on Introduction to Indian Calendar. In this module, we are going to discuss Kshaya Tithi and Kshaya Nakshatra. This has to do with the deviation from the mean moon position, also mean sun position. However, in this module, we are not going to discuss actually why this variation occurs. This happens for many reasons. At a very high level, we will discuss it in future modules. However, in this module, I want everyone to focus on understanding Kshaya Tithi, what it means, and understanding Kshaya Nakshatra and what it means. We are going to use the same calendar, same specific year that we are employing. That is the year of 2015. We went through the month of March, specifically beginning with 20th of March, when the first day of the lunisolar calendar coincided with the first day of the solar calendar in Indian system. That's 20th of March, which also the day of spring equinox. And it was also the day of Gudi Padwa, the way it is celebrated in Maharashtra, the Chaitra Shukla Pratipada, the first day of Indian lunisolar calendar. And also it's celebrated as Ugadi, for example, in Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. So we will continue from where we left in the previous module. 5th April, Nakshatra is Chitra, and it is the day of Chaitra Krishna Pratipada. So now we are getting into the second half of the lunar month of Chaitra. Now notice, I'm counting that day as day 16, which is the first day of the second half of the lunar month. So this is the first day of the Krishna Paksha or Vadya Paksha. So it is a day after the day of full moon. But notice the position of the full moon into the demo simulator. It shows as if the position of the moon is right at the full moon. Again, remember, this happens because whereas the actual position on this day, that is the 5th April 2015, was one day after the day of full moon, based on the mean moon calculation, which are employed into this demo simulator, the moon's position was at the point of full moon. Okay, that is to say exactly opposite of the sun. 6th April, the nakshatra changes from Chitra to Swati, and the Tithi changes to Chaitra Krishna Dvitiya or Chaitra Vadya Dvitiya. This is something very important, that all of us get comfortable with using certain terminologies interchangeably. For example, the first half of the lunar month that begins with the day of Pratipada just after the day of Amavasya and continues up to the full moon day is called a Shukla Paksha or a Shuddha Paksha, depending on the context, depending on the areas of India, and depending on a specific convention one may follow. So Shukla Paksha is same as Shuddha Paksha. Similarly, a Paksha, a fortnight, a second half of the lunar month that begins with the day just after the full moon day and continues until the day of Amavasya, is either called a Vadya Paksha or a Krishna Paksha. Chaitra Krishna Dvitiya, notice in the parenthesis, in the bracket, I'm using the number 17. So that's like 15 plus 2. So after the full moon day, we are counting the tithis again from the same number. So Pratipada, which means like number 1, Dvitiya, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to Amavasya, which will be like a Chaitra Krishna 15. But in the parenthesis, we are counting these days as the total days in that lunar month. Therefore, we are counting them as 16 and 17. All right. Okay. As I said already, notice the moon mean position. Based on the mean calculation, is showing as if it is at the full moon. In reality, for this day, 5th April 2015, it was a day after the full moon. So this is something all of us must get comfortable, which means our calculation can vary from the actual position by possibly plus minus 1 to 2 days, not more than that. Actually, plus minus 1 day. But depending on where exactly we are looking at this position of the moon with respect to a specific location on the surface of the earth through that 360-degree, it can be in a very specific instances up to plus minus 2 days. All right, so something that every one of us must become comfortable. All right, let's move on. So then 7th of April, Nakshatra is Vishakha. And it's the day of Chaitra Krishna Tritiya or Chaitra Vadya Tritiya. 8th April, Nakshatra shifts from Vishakha to Anuradha, the next Nakshatra. And Tithi is Chaitra Krishna Chaturthi or Chaitra Vadya Chaturthi. Next day is 9th April, Nakshatra is Jyeshtha and Tithi Chaitra Krishna Panchami. 10th April, Nakshatra is Mula and Chaitra Krishna Shashti or Chaitra Vadya Shashti. 11th April, Nakshatra Purvashada and Tithi Chaitra Krishna Saptami or Chaitra Vadya Saptami. 12th April, Nakshatra is Uttarashada and Tithi is Chaitra Krishna Ashtami or Chaitra Vadya Ashtami. Now we are going to look at the occurrence of a Kshaya Tithi. Kshaya is like eclipsing, or almost you can think of that as a disappearance or elimination, as opposed to Adhika. So it's exactly opposite of Adhika. So think of what happened. Adhika is like extra. So think what happened when we had Adhika Nakshatra or Adhika Tithi. We had an extra Nakshatra, which is to say same Nakshatra occurring on 2 consecutive days. In case of Tithi, we had same Tithi appearing on 2 consecutive days. In case of Kshaya Tithi or Kshaya Nakshatra, it happens the exactly opposite of what happens to Adhika Tithi or Adhika Nakshatra. So let's see what happens here. So we are continuing 13th of April. Notice Nakshatra is Shravan. And Tithi is Chaitra Krishna Navami or Chaitra Vadya Navami. Let me put the next day. It so happens, and let me remind you, at this stage, we are not going to discuss or worry about why that happens. It's important that you understand that it does happen, and you must know what to call that Tithi or what to call that Nakshatra, and not get confused when you go back eventually and look at a regular functional calendar. So here, in this case, we are saying that there was a Kshaya Tithi. Notice, on 13th April, it was the day of, or a Tithi of Chaitra Krishna Navami or Chaitra Vadya Navami. And the next day, notice the Tithi jumped from Chaitra Krishna Navami to Chaitra Krishna Ekadashi, 11. The number 10 never occurred, it disappeared. And I have written that into parentheses as 24/25. So those both Tithis, in a way, occurred on that one day. What day is this? 13th of April. So if you look into the calendar on the left side, 13th, of April. Notice next to that number, we have these two numbers, 24, 25. So those both tithis occurred on that day. So going to the next day, we have 26th. So there was a jump of that one tithi. So as if 25th, which is to say Chaitra Krishna Dashami or Chaitra Vadya Dashami, never occurred, as if it never occurred, okay? So therefore, we are calling that as a disappeared or eclipsed tithi, and therefore a Kshaya Tithi. Okay, let's move on. Next day, 15 April, Nakshatra is a Shatabhishaj, Tithi Chaitra Krishna Dwadashi. Next day, 16 April, Nakshatra is Purva Bhadrapad, Chaitra, Krishna, Trayodashi. 17 April, Nakshatra is Uttara Bhadrapad, Tithi is Chaitra, Krishna, Chaturdashi. Next day, 18th April, Nakshatra is Revati, and Tithi Chaitra, Krishna, 15. What does that mean? Remember, it's a Chaitra month, the second half, and the last day of the second half of the lunar month. What day would that be? I hope you have guessed the correct answer. It would be the day of Amavasya. Just like Chaitra Shukla or Chaitra Shuddha 15 would be the day of full moon, Chaitra Krishna 15 or Chaitra Vadya 15 is the day of Amavasya. Again, from the perspective of the mean moon position, notice that the position of the moon shown for 18th April is not at the Amavasya. It's not along the same line of the earth and the sun and moon in between. Again, this has to do with the mean position calculations for the moon. Whereas in reality, that is to say on 18th April 2015, the India time, okay, the Ujjain time, there was a Amavasya, but not based on the mean position calculations. Something else, recall that I said if you want to truly experience the aha moments of the calendar in general, and specifically the beauty, ingenuity, and the precision and accuracy of the Indian lunisolar calendar, then you must have the names of the nakshatras by heart. This is the time to test it. Nakshatra Revati. What is the name of the nakshatra that occurs immediately after Revati? Think of an answer in your mind. If you could not recall the nakshatra after Revati and you had to go back to your reference material, you have not listened to my instructions. You must have these nakshatras by heart, and it is for a reason. There is a method to madness. Why I'm insisting that you should remember your nakshatras, your lunar months, everything by heart, and same thing with the tithis. Let's go to the next one. So notice 18th April, we have a nakshatra Revati, and it is the day of Amavasya. It's the end of the lunar month of Chaitra. So we go to the next one. Okay, and 19th April. So from 18th April, we are on the 19th April. And what is the nakshatra? Nakshatra is Bharani. And it is the first day of Vaishakha lunar month. So after Chaitra is the Vaishakh Shukla Pratipada, the first day. Anything surprising, anything interesting that you notice? Guess what? You would have only noticed it if you had your nakshatra system by heart. Okay, again, don't look at the mean position of the moon. Okay, it is off for a reason. Okay, this is just a reference, a demo simulator for you to remember your nakshatra names. If you did not have that aha moment, then you haven't done your homework. If you notice, the previous nakshatra was Revati. We fast forwarded the time to the next day, 19th April, and the nakshatra is not Ashwini, but it is Bharani, as if it skipped the nakshatra this time. Okay, if you go to the next day, 20th April, again nakshatra is Kritika. So after Bharani, it is indeed Kritika, so no issue. And it's the day of the Vaishakha Shukla Dvitiya, the second day of lunar month of Vaishakha. A scenario like this, where the day skipped a certain nakshatra, just like we skipped a Tithi of Dashami before, and therefore we called it a Kshaya Tithi. In this case, we will call this as a Kshaya Nakshatra, a nakshatra that eclipsed, a nakshatra that disappeared, as if it disappeared for a sequential day system. So previous day it was the nakshatra Revati, the next day it should have been Ashwini, but as if something happened and it switched over rather to Bharani. It jumped over Ashwini to Bharani. Again, as I said, we are not going to worry here why that happens. However, it's very important that you understand that does happen. You note it down and you know what is it designated as. It's called a Kshaya Nakshatra. So in this case, we would say Ashwini became a Kshaya Nakshatra. Okay, so that was the day of 19 April here. So for example, what do you notice? If you go to 18th, and it's not always easy to read, but if you read here, you will see nakshatra is Revati. But next day you come to 19th, okay, as far as the Tithi is concerned, it's fine. It's the Amavasya, therefore it's 30 here. And it's the Pratipada, which is the first day of the next month, that's fine. However, notice the nakshatra, instead of Ashwini after Revati, it just switched over to Bharani. And that's what I'm showing you on the right side, okay, by highlighting. And this is called a Kshaya Nakshatra. In this case, we are saying Ashwini became the Kshaya Nakshatra at this time of this lunar month. And of course, we can just continue with this lunar month of Vaishakha. The next day nakshatra would be Rohini. Again, if you notice, Vaishakha Shukla Tritiya and also Chaturthi shown there, which is to say, immediately there, a Kshaya Tithi took place. Again, you can notice that in this day here, 21st April. If you come to 21st April, notice you go back to 20th of April. That is Dvitiya. That's why this is 2. And if you go to 22nd of April, you have a Panchami. That's why it is 5. But notice on 21st of April, there are 2 Tithis taking place on the same day. So that's Tritiya and Chaturthi of Vaishakha Shukla Paksha. We will say that the Chaturthi became the Kshaya Tithi, as if it never really occurred, or it eclipsed with the Tithi of a Tritiya. Chaturthi eclipsed with Tritiya. Okay, so this is another occurrence of a Kshaya Tithi. And of course, we can go on. So what did we notice? In a given month, or if we track the Indian lunisolar calendar for certain time, say through a couple of months, we will come across Adhika Tithi, Adhika Nakshatra, Kshaya Tithi, Kshaya Nakshatra, and something else we will note down is that the calculated mean position of the moon with respect to either a specific nakshatra or with respect to a specific tithi will not exactly match. And that has to do with the deviation of the movement or motions of the moon and the sun from their mean calculated positions. As to why that happens, we will address it in future modules of this course.